Thanks, man. So, new guy here, stranger, I'm trying to be weird. Just so you guys have a little bit better understanding of who I am, kind of. Like Andrew said, my name's Tyler. I have a wonderful wife and two tiny little kids. They're 3 and 2. If you don't see photos, they're the cutest kids ever. I know most people don't get excited about it, but they're blonde hair, blue eyed, and they're the best kids ever, single-handedly. Not really, they're kind of terrors. But I'm a student at the seminary. That's how I know Andrew for pastoral ministry. But before I came here, I was in the Air Force and I lived in Japan for 6 years. If that's a cool thing for anybody, it's really cool. If anyone wants to chat about that. I was an EMT and I got to just live there for 6 years with my wife and our kids. It was just this really, really sweet time. So if anyone wants to chat about either what it was like being in the Air Force and it was really cool and I enjoyed it, or if you want to go to Japan, ever, any dreams of it, or a big anime fan, any way you want to go about it, come chat with me. I'm a super nerd, deep down, super nerd guy. Before I just want to ask you guys a real quick question. I want to answer if you guys can engage me on it a little bit. What's the worst place you guys ever think of?
Franklinton, North Carolina.
Yeah.
Is that it? I mean, I don't know. I'm new here, so I don't know what's good or bad. I live in Wake Forest. I heard it's pretty cool, so I don't know. Maybe there's like a street division there. But is that like a legit not great nightmare place? Like I'm talking like worst case scenario, desert island, saw bathroom, like really not good scenario. Franklinton?
Sucks.
Okay. Well, we got an answer and I love it. Cool. That's good. So there's probably a place like that in the Air Force. There is actually, I can tell you. It's a place in North Dakota. So how many of you guys love cold weather and snow and -5 degrees Fahrenheit? Does that sound great to anybody? You guys are buck wild. That is not a fun thing for me. But there's this idea there's a unified place in North Dakota, everybody in the Air Force. It's this whole slogan of why not, my not, or better not, my not. Some people are like, oh, whatever, I'll go anywhere. Most people don't like it at all. It's a crushing average temperature of 18 degrees Fahrenheit. Average. So like it's 81 outside. Flip that. That's cold. It's super cold. I just came from Colorado this weekend and it was like 30 and it snowed. I don't do cold weather. Me and my wife do not do cold weather. But on top of that, so it's right next to like the Canadian border. You're like, you can spit across the border if you wanted to. It's really not a cool place. I haven't been. I lived in Japan in sunny Hawaii style weather for so long, so that was my thing. But an average snowfall, 52 inches a year. That's a lot of snow. It's just a whole lot. So I've always heard of Minot as being this desolate, sad.
It's called Minot.
It's called Minot. The town is Minot, and it's Minot Air Force Base. And it's just one big, cold hoth of a planet.
Tundra.
Yes, it is. I mean, it's a snowy zone. So this is a place where snow and rain happen all the time, where there isn't much civilization to speak of. You're not going to get a lot of anything but snow and woods and wilderness and a neighbor 6 miles away. That's great. Cool. If it's not, don't go there. For most people, it's not. So you're so far out of place and out of reach with anyone else. Now, I'm sure for some of you that may sound cool, right? Like you guys are like, yeah, that's cool. I'm down. It sounds cold, frozen tundra. I can deal with it. Fur coats, hood up, we're good. But for some people, it's a place in isolation for hunting and fishing. But for almost every person I've ever had personal interaction with in the Air Force, it's just always going to be that phrase, better not, might not. Don't give me any orders, because in the Air Force, you don't get to move. You don't really get a choice. They're like, hey, where you want to go? Some people, you catch your lots, you're like Japan or Hawaii, and they'll hook you up and send you on a plane, and it's sweet. Sometimes they're like, you're going to go to Arizona, and it's a desert, and it's literally like tumbleweeds all day long. Or you're going to go to Minot, and it's a frozen winter tundra of doom. You know, you never know. So it's just a place where there's like not any sun, there's just not a lot of fun, and it has a dark and gray atmosphere about it. So to bring it all in full circle, this is kind of the context that Jesus arrived in when he first started ministry. All of Israel was waiting, not very patiently, for a Messiah. For those of you guys that don't know, Old Testament, New Testament, 400 years. And it ended on a promise of the Messiah to come, Jesus Christ. 400-year gap. Well, it's a little bit of a wait, you know? You're like, I don't know what to do with that. I'm ready for them to come. He should have arrived. Things should have happened. And they were not very obedient. As you go through Old Testament, you'll find. So it was kind of like the minot of the world for that time. It was a world where them may not be gray everywhere, like obviously, but their hearts were into spiritual darkness, legitimately, and they needed rescuing. Life for them just was this same perpetual, never stopping day of like rain and clouds, because they were waiting for Jesus to come. Some of you guys even now, I mean, I have been, believe it or not, people can be young, so I've been, 16, 12, 13, whatever. I'm only 28, so some of you guys will be like, man, this guy's super old and ancient, and I'll take my pride and keep going out the door, because I think I'm pretty young, but some of you guys may agree with that idea that you're in this perpetual state of like clouds and rain and unsure, like why, how, or like if you even need a rescue. You may not be. So the text I want to look at for you guys tonight, it's just one passage, just one verse. If you guys want to open up to John 10:10, you can read it with me. It's not a typical one we choose. The text tonight, it's just a short one, but there's so much that we can glean from it, and I just want to give you guys some applications and stuff for it. So let me know when you guys are there. Give me a thumbs up, or like raise your fist up, or look glazed over at me in the face. However you want to do it.
You said 10:10?
10:10. John 10:10. Yep. You almost tripped me up. You guys, just give me the thumbs up. Sorry. This flight, we just got back from Colorado. It's a whole mile up in the air, so I just flew down and landed last night. So my elevation is like, wow. It's really hard to breathe up there. It's right before Acts and after Luke in your New Testament. Cool? Good?
It's on page 1644.
Yeah, I'm using a different one, but I got your guys' option. Cool. So the text is, the thief comes to steal, comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life, have it to the full. There's just a lot that we can learn from this text, and the first thing is that Jesus saves us from that which would destroy us. So that's a lot of words, but real quick, give me a few things for you guys to know. How many of you guys are familiar with like what Jesus calls himself? Think like I am statements, like I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the bread of life. And you guys think of anything else Jesus says about himself? Maybe like I'm the door, or I'm the good shepherd. Yeah, that would be one. I'm the true vine, and I'm the resurrection and the life. Those are I am statements that Jesus says about himself in his relation to God and what his position is. This is what God says about himself. Jesus is the door, or the good shepherd. Throughout John 10:10 to John 10:14, that little part right there, he talks about himself being the good shepherd, and we're going to dig into some of that, but really rooted in 10:10. So he's using a language that's familiar to the people of Israel, because that's who he's talking to. He's talking to the Israelites at the time. Shepherds at that time, they were historically in fields away from their homes. Cool? Like shepherds, they go out, hang out with the sheep. Much like any good shepherd at that time, that's what they did. When they were in their home, they had an elaborate sheep pen. I'm about to do an illustration. I'm going to draw. I am not an artist, so forgive me. But like, home. Yeah, no, I already messed up. I just almost drew a castle.
Every worse than Andrew's, he drew a little stick.
Do what?
The stick down.
That's okay. I like it. I'm gonna try and respect and be a little elaborate. So home, right? This is a home. So here's a sheep pen, and it's like made of cobblestone. We'll do a pen. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but like this one's made of like legit stone, and it's very well built, and the sheep live in it. And there's probably like a little gate right here. So that's it's well crafted. It's like obviously very full, thick stone, and a little tiny gate for sheep. And I'll draw a sheep for whoever wants to see a cute sheep.
That's not a cute sheep.
Well, it's a cute sheep to me.
At the state fair, okay? That's not a sheep.
It's got wool, it's puffy, it's big, you can make a coat out of
You
it.
gotta make it curly. Gotta be border lesson.
Here,
Thank you.
there you go. And it's got what does sheep have? Little tiny ears, or like
Yeah,
horns or
ears.
something like that? Rams, I'm thinking of. Cool, so that's an elaborate sheep pen, right? The one that was made close to the house, sheep would keep it and protect it well because it was safe and secure in their little home of their shepherd. But often, what do shepherds and sheepdogs and sheep do? You guys ever seen the photos or the videos of like the sheepdogs running in Ireland and they're like,
Oh,
they
I know a sheepdog. It's very, very friendly.
that's
Okay.
why didn't you bring it? It would have been a fantastic companion party.
It's not my dog.
Well, it's okay. That's stealing. I wouldn't take it. So they travel, right? They take their sheep and they take them out and shepherd them. Yeah. So the sheep outside of the home, that pen wasn't real legit. It looked probably more like this, like sticks, you know, like a beaver's. It would look probably just more like random sticks together, right? Just not a real elaborate thing. They would build it, and then this part, you know, here's all the sheep. It'll be curly, don't worry. You know, there's your curly sheep, legs, curly head, cute ears, curly tail.
Curly head, but okay.
Yeah, puffy features. But so here's the thing, and the doorway would just be the shepherd. Let's give him a sweet robe.
That's gonna be fun having a sheep come running at you if you want to get it
That
out.
way, used to have, the shepherds would actually lay down across the opening
They would.
because the sheep couldn't really jump too high because they don't have knees.
They don't.
They just
Well,
have their hard legs.
know,
They
they
just
just-
hop a little.
You've never seen one of my sheep jump.
well, you must have jumping sheep. Like somebody has
Some
fainting
steroid
goats.
sheep.
So that's what they would do. The shepherds would typically be the literal door. This, bringing it back, this is the door that Jesus is speaking of. This is the good shepherd that we desire to have. Because there's an enemy out there. There is definitely an enemy that is seeking to harm you, to prevent you from coming close to it. Much like wolves, lions, carnivores, and of that time, because that was the predator. There was lions and wolves and carnivores and things that were going to eat sheep and probably the shepherd. Everybody's not pretty sketched out about it. But this enemy will seek you out. He does. Some of us definitely have testimonies of what it's like for the enemy to come after us. But this enemy is able to take many different forms. The only protector of your soul is Jesus. He is the door guarding you from being taken over. So let me ask you guys this real quick. I've got a few more questions just to make sure everybody doesn't check out all the way. What do you guys worship besides Jesus? If those of you guys are followers of the Lord and worship Jesus and see Him as your treasure, which is a yes and amen to that, but it doesn't take the challenge off of us to trust and embrace our need and desire for Jesus continually. So ask yourself this real quick. Why do I place so many expectations on things to satisfy me in such a way that only Christ can satisfy me? And I'll say that one more time. Why do I place so many expectations on things to satisfy me, right? In a way that only Christ can satisfy me. So, let me just give you guys an example real quick. Think on it. Just take take 20 seconds. Just think for a minute. Things that you really enjoy doing, but you'll stop and then you'll be like, I don't want to do that because I'm going to do something else. I'm bored. I'm not satisfied with it. So just take 20 seconds. Just kind of think about it and get them back at me.
It's permanent ink when it goes to your hand.
Do what?
It's permanent when it goes on your hand.
Oh man, it's good. Shed skin cells all the time. So you guys give me some examples. Throw some at me if you can. What are some things that like you put so much time and effort in, but then you're just like, I'm not really satisfied with it. I'm on
Work.
break. Work is one, definitely.
My drawings.
Your drawings, okay. So art and media.
Not always rewarding.
No, because you put so much time into it, right? And you're like,
So you were working in the yard.
this didn't work out. What's up, I do?
School.
School.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
I mean, I'm gonna do it.
Because you put so much work into that, and you're just like, I'm here, I'm doing it for so many years, or you failed, or you did something, and you're just like, this
So water back working.
is not great. You don't feel any like comfort on it. You guys got anything else? Luke? Name?
Katie.
Katie. What's your name?
Joe.
Joe. Luke. Katie. Joe.
Katie.
Katie.
would guess.
I don't know it. I'm pausing. What is your name?
Lizea.
Lizea. That's the raddest. I like that name. Lizea, do you have anything that you can think of that's not already on here? Like, probably school booster for big ones.
What, wasting time you mean, or killing time?
No, I mean like where we just put so much effort into it and we're not satisfied.
Watching TV,
Yeah.
Building.
movies.
Yeah.
How my dad builds stuff all the
There
time,
we
like a
go.
fireplace and some wood chairs.
Yeah. Building, like activities, recreation.
That's not fun.
No, some for
No,
some
it's
people
fun,
it's
but
not.
like it's just so hard.
TV,
And like I was making
movies.
something before and it just broke apart because my brother ran into it with the golf cart.
Netflix, video games, I mean, you name it, hanging out with people, relationships, we can put a lot of hope in relationships, and when they don't go the way we want. I mean, every single thing you can think of almost, we'll start to worship it and desire it, but it's just because there's so many idols that we can have access to, like our phones. I mean, there's 45 million apps out there, or probably way more, that's probably a conservative number. But Jesus alone saves us from that, which would protect us. He is that same door. He's that protector. He's the person who comforts us and gives us that hope and that joy for it all. So yeah, that's the first thing, is that Jesus saves us from those things that would destroy us. Those things that we put so much hope in that just don't satisfy us. Second thing is, much like Jesus is the door, he's our protector, and he gives us a life-changing peace. So let me paint you guys a picture real quick, just for a second. I'll try to be illustrative. I think it's good. Like I said, I got two tiny kids, Asher and Emery. They're 3 and 2, and they're super old boys. Like, they destroy our house all the time. I was staying with them. I was the Mr. Mom for like the last year and a half, so I had all the fun and the joy 6 days a week, and I loved it. I loved being a dad. That was definitely a calling for me. So we spent a lot of time. So they're allowed to go outside. They can use the door. We live in a pretty circular area. There's not high traffic. They're not going to die. But
So
they're
why
allowed.
would we put an electric fence out?
Man, it's the only thing that the electric collar is good. You know, those things are usually underground, but no, I'm not going to collar my kid. So they're allowed to go outside and use the door and play as long as someone's home. So like if dad's inside doing schoolwork or something, or washing dishes, I can see them. I'm protecting them and allowing them to go in and out of the door. I serve as this shepherd for them, protecting them. They know that whenever dad is out there playing with them, they can have a peace about what they can do. It's just normal for them. It's a comfort. And maybe not everybody can relate to that. But despite what some of you guys may think, they're probably pretty good at obeying. My kids, I mean, I don't know, you guys might not be super good at obeying, but my kids are pretty okay at it. Because we've worked and we've helped them understand that, like, dad's here, he's your protector. You can have peace by playing inside. This piece for my kids is bar none. It's not, I mean, it's like, I'm giving an illustration, but it's like this size compared to the peace that we can receive from King Jesus. And I can definitely attest to that. But he is that person for us. And if you guys don't realize this, we need a protector. Just honestly, we need someone who can guard the door, feel the issues from bad things, things that are going to come. Like these things, we can worship these things and desire them so much more than we think. We need a protector, someone who can redeem us, rescue us, and changes us. The sin in our hearts or the things that are seeking to destroy us are out there. There is a lion outside that the sluggard speaks of in Proverbs. If we're not seeing our need to embrace that protection, we're just lost souls. The gospel tells us that there is a lion, and it calls Satan that very lion. But the gospel also tells us that this lion's already been defeated, and that is owed directly to Jesus. There's another place we can look at it. We can look to Psalm 23. You guys don't have to go there, but it's verse 3 and verse 4. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, that's 23:3. Even David right here, he's admitting his fears in this psalm, his doubts, his fears, his frustrations, the things that are just scaring him. And he realizes there is an enemy, there's an attacker. And for him, he's literally being chased and trying to be killed by the king of the time. But right after that, there's this beautiful picture of our need to be rescued. And right after that, in Psalm 23, he believes in this promised Messiah. I will fear no evil, for you're with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. This is Jesus. King Jesus is the one who is with him. We don't fear the evil because he's with us. He's present with us for our own lives. If you've made that proclamation and see Christ as your Savior and as your treasure, you have this peace for you. And we can remain in this overwhelming peace that Jesus has and is working actively to protect us and guard us. What's up, man?
Is that recorded?
Yes.
It is. It sure is.
Please focus.
So what does this mean for you? We need to be honest within our community about those lines at the gate. Seek the Lord in community. I don't know, maybe for you guys that can seem weird. Maybe you're a believer in the Lord and you're like the only one you know. Maybe you guys are the only ones. Maybe you guys haven't seen the joy that you can come from Christ. But either way, for those of us that are or are not, we need to be honest within our community about those lines that are at the gate. Whether you're a believer or not, you can see that these things are not worthwhile all the time. There's joy in them. We can, but we can't let it be our identity. We need to help build and protect one another from those lines in our lives. And Jesus is still working in and through community with believers. Because we're surrounded by predators. It's just legitimate. We are. But we're secured, we're safe, and satisfied with the Jesus. And we can have that peace from the gospel because our soul is at rest because of the presence of our shepherd. And I'm going to get to the third point here. Jesus is our provider. He satisfies our hunger and thirst. And that can sound really wild because you may not know the satisfaction of Christ. But he gives us life in abundance, not just in a physical way. We have our life, but in a desire for the spiritual. If you haven't had the chances to experience this abundance of joy, I would just love to tell you guys at the end of this just some of the life-changing experiences and satisfactions that can and does come from Christ alone. So let me tell you this. If you miss anything, if you're checked out, please come back, hear this. Let's lock in on this one thing. Everything that we're chasing and how our hearts are prone to wonder. You may be thinking, I'm satisfied, I'm good. Things are cool, I'm good where I'm at. I was that guy until I was 21. So you can imagine my life before then. But I promise you, both everybody in here, that you aren't. You're just not. You're not satisfied where you are. You see, whether you know it or not, that there's things that you're just not satisfied with. And outside of Jesus, those things are popularity, boys, girls, sports, scholarships, media, your own social media platforms, games, how far you've made it in any aspect of life. Whether I think that we're seeking it, but they just pale in comparison to the satisfaction of Christ. And we're seeking something to fulfill our hearts 24/7. We always are. We're always worshiping something. When it's not Jesus, it's an idol, something that is coming to destroy us and take us and separate us away from Jesus. But it's all just sinking sand apart from Christ. Strength and joy are in his place. They're in his presence. Even though we think all these other things are so appealing and will take us to this place of joy, it's not. It's not on solid ground. And it is falling and failing fast. So we're still in our rebellion. We are. We're still in this fallen, broken world. It's part of it. But sometimes we just need to cry out. I know that I do, and I'm sure Andrew, Tomke too, that this is our Jesus, the peace that secures us, the shepherd who guards his sheep, and the one who satisfies our soul for hunger and joy. So the peace that secures us, the comfort, the shepherd who guards his sheep, that's Jesus. He said both those things. I am the door guarding you. I am the good shepherd protecting you, loving you, and I am all that you need and need to be satisfied in. He satisfies, he redeems our soul. So we need to run to Christ and not after an idol of any of these, of strength and joy and satisfaction. That they're only going to fail you. And it's just, it sounds harsh, but it is. It's a truth, and it's a hard truth, and I say that in love, and I would tell you that offline or here, that it's just something that I wish someone would have told me so many years ago. But they're only going to fail you. But why do I need to rely on when I'm searching for my soul? What do I need to rely on when I am searching for my soul to be restored? Does anybody know the answer I'm probably going to tell you? No. You got it, man. Say it a little louder.
Jesus.
Absolutely. Jesus. Run to Christ with your burdens. Let him bear them. Let him be the rest and comfort of your heart. I promise you, when you truly see the goodness and the treasure of Christ, he will always satisfy you. Doesn't mean life gets automatically easy. Let's be upfront about it. But he will give you a peace that you can't take away, and you'll know your position and salvation in heaven that cannot be taken away. So let me leave you with these 3 little prompts of wisdom. I'm going to write them out. They're just small little things, wrapping it all up, because you can't have a sermon in the Bible Belt without a few points and wrapping it up again. For you guys, as Jesus is working actively and protecting his flock, and we're seeking to submit to Jesus as that needed protector and rescuer, just these 3 things right here. Sweet long sleeve shirt, clean it all off. Be a sheep. Be a sheep. My handwriting is terrible. It looks like because a sheep, but be a sheep. I mean, admit your need for a shepherd. Please take the step. Talk to us about it. Talk to anyone that you know that is a believer, and talk to them and say, I need to be a sheep. I need to be protected. And confess in that community. If you have people who are believers and you're on the fence or not, that's a C, not a H. I don't know where I was going with that. I guess I was going to write humility or something. But community. Confessing community. In our community, we need people to help us. And we need to see the need. And we need to be building each other up for taking away our own idols. And the last one, we see it come all the way back in Psalm 23. Talking about, I will have no fear, for your rod and your staff is with me, but rest in Jesus. Be a sheep, admit your need for Christ. It's incredibly, the most important decision you could ever make in your life.
Is to be a sheep.
To be a sheep, but in regards to Christ. Be a sheep for Christ. Let Christ shepherd you. See your need for Jesus. Confess in community. Share your burdens with one another. Be brothers and sisters made in the image of God, and rest in the comfort and the peace of Jesus. Those are just the 3 things that I want to give to you in part 2. And just pray. Just pray with me, guys, real quick. But thank you. Father, thank you so much for just letting us look through this one small text of Scripture and just see so much from it, Lord, that you guard us, you protect us, and you are a door, keeping the enemy out. Lord, it can seem weird to compare ourselves to sheep. It can. You'd say it's unusual, but Lord, you come around us and you protect us in the way that a shepherd does. Let us be that sheep, because we know that you will leave the 99 to go find the one. Lord, thank you just for letting me have the ability to speak. Lord, thank you for your word, for just showing us so much truth from one thing. Father, thank you for the time together, and I pray that we can just see you for your good and your glory. In your name, amen.
Amen.